Okay, why don't we get started? Before we start, maybe we could just have a moment of observe a moment of silence for the people, the victims in Charleston, South Carolina. Just pause for a moment. Okay, thank you very much. I'm really pleased to be here with these two gentlemen, Senator Brown, Representative Verb. And the commission behind them just presented this morning a fair funding formula, which is a big step forward for I think the people of Pennsylvania and for our education system. It was a bipartisan effort. The output is bipartisan. I think it's a really strong statement, and it's a sign that we actually can reach across party lines, across the aisle, to do some really important things for the people of Pennsylvania. So I want to congratulate you, Senator Brown, Representative Verb, and all the members of the commission behind me. I will not name you, but thank you very much. They think they did an extraordinary job. And just want to say, this formula makes a really important difference for our schools, and it makes the allocation for education funding more transparent, as well as fairer and much more predictable. Those are things that I think are really important. So congratulations once again. Now let me just turn it over to Senator Brown and then Representative Verb for a few comments.
Well, thank you, Governor. I want to reiterate your comments regarding the collective work of the commission and congratulate you for the work of your designees, the Budget Secretary, Secretary of Policy, and the Secretary of Education for their tremendous collaborative work and expertise in making this happen. Without them, we would not have come to a consensus. They did a tremendous job. And I had mentioned at the commission final meeting that I'm in my 21st year in office, and I've, in that time, and I can, I think, speak for those around us, that education finance is some of the most compelling and challenging area of public policy. Compelling because of the people that it serves, our state's most valuable resource, our primary and secondary education students, and challenging because of the diversity of the state. But with the recommendations today, I believe this commission has met its charge to, on a unanimous basis, bipartisan, bicameral basis, along with the administration, to promote more equity, fairness, and sustainability in education finance. We spent 12 months, had a very, very thorough due diligence process, and in that, we're able to gather testimony that led us to some very credible, defendable conclusions, that a formula needs to be student-based, that has to meet the primary foundation of our education imperative, that distribution of funding to our local education institutions is needed for the education of our students, and it must be set that way and be based on a dynamic basis to adjust over time that way. It reflects student need, that it must match and benchmark the decisions that school districts make in appropriating additional resources based on the needs of students, so that the formula has factors that accommodate that for poverty, for acute poverty, for the concentrations of poverty, for English proficiency, and for charter schools. And we develop weights in order to accommodate the distribution of those resources, working with our experts at the Independent Fiscal Office and a lot of other associations that were of tremendous value to us. And then once you determine the needs of students, you have to determine what capacity a school district has at its own disposal to raise money to provide for the education of those students. We had used a determination of wealth for years. It was probably the most sustainable component of our formula, called an aid ratio, for many, many years. And what we found out from our experts was that over time became less credible, less transparent, so we moved to a whole new platform, which is based on the median income within households and districts. And then looking at that, and also looking at what capacity a district has to raise money and what tax effort it puts on that capacity, we're able to determine what resources a district has available to it to match with state resources to provide for its students. And lastly, to accommodate the important issues of economies of scale. As districts get smaller, they have less resources to spread along their fixed costs that must be provided by all districts. So we adopted a sparsity size ratio that was also in the special education funding formula that accommodates for that. The members of this commission represent the challenge that we have in providing equity, sustainability, and fairness in education funding because we represent the diversity of the Commonwealth, all different types of communities, different frameworks, different needs. But what we have in common is what made this work, and that is our understanding of the importance, the imperative of educating our students and coming to a better means distribute those dollars. And that's more than just our charge, it's our obligation to the future of Pennsylvania. So thank you, Governor.
Thank you very much. Representative Verb, how about a few words?
A few?
Well, just a few.
Okay. Governor, thank you. Chairman Saylor, I know you don't want to join us up here, but I think you should because he's going to be authoring the bill from the House. But Governor, Senator Brown obviously hit on a lot of what is going on in facts and figures, but I think this is really a historic moment. We had a piece of legislation go through the House and Senate, signed by our previous governor. We had a commission where everyone had representation. We had a transition in administrations in the middle of this. Your Secretary of Budget was already involved from the Senate staff side. We made sure very early on that transition was going to continue to be smooth and not stall us. And then we all stayed away from philosophy and focused on the one thing that we recognized here in Pennsylvania, and that is what we were doing is not working. And we kept away from monies. That's for the bigger table, Governor. But at the end of the day, I think that this provides awesome framework, transparency so people see why money's going where, and predictability for our school boards so they have some type of an idea of what they're going to be facing with regardless of what Harrisburg decides in the budget time. So I really feel, and Senator Brown said it a few times, we're going to get this done. This is going to be a big moment for Pennsylvania. And it is a big moment. But the next big moment is all of us lobbying our colleagues in the House and the Senate and your Legislative Affairs Office working to get this product through both chambers and hopefully come back to your desk for a signature to put in the law, and we can move forward for the betterment of our students in Pennsylvania. So thank you for having us here today.
Thanks very much.
How was that? Good?
Okay, that's great. Thanks a lot. Okay, we have time for a few questions, and you can address them to any of the three of us, or actually anybody in the commission. So.
Governor, Representative mentioned the lobbying effort that's going to have to be made to get this through the legislature. Is it possible, because this formula does have a Robin Hood-like effect where you're going to give more money to districts that need it based on those weighted factors and that kind of thing versus a district that doesn't need it? So are you anticipating a big fight a big fight, believe it that way?
Who are you addressing that to?
All of us, yeah.
Sure. I think that, Steve, we had a year, 15 hearings, over 100 folks testifying, representing dozens of school districts. We're taking all that information, translating it to paper, and in a period of weeks or months, trying to translate how we came to the document that we came to. So we're going to have to educate our colleagues on why we ended up where we are. And of course, it's something new. Just like this commission was new. People doubted it would ever get off the ground. People doubted when we extended a week that this was just another Harrisburg commission. So we have to take that energy, the friendships and the bipartisanship and certainly the support of the great talent that the administration has. And my good friend, Secretary Rivera, I mean, one day he's testifying in front of his superintendent, and 2 weeks later he's nominated. So gives you an example how this world is round, and I think we just need to work on this product to educate our colleagues.
And Steve, I think it's important to note that the members of the commission very fairly and adequately represents the dynamics in the General Assembly. Our members are from very different communities, represent different parts of the Commonwealth, and we came to a consensus today. So I think that reflects the thought process in the Assembly regarding the work product we have here. And I can say pretty clearly that the vast majority of people in the Assembly understand the need in a formula to accommodate equity, that there are districts that don't have the capacity to raise money, and there are districts that have students with more needs. And they will understand that when we present that to them. I personally believe that when I had the opportunity to present this with Senator Fulmer and Smucker and myself to our caucus, it'll be well received.
I'd just like to say, I think the people of Pennsylvania are looking at this the same way they are, and that is, this is not an effort to assign blame or fault. It's a fact that there are some school districts that are better able to teach their kids. They have the resources. maybe more than other schools do. But all of us share in the problem of underfunding of education. I might live in York County, but if a child in Philadelphia doesn't get a good education, that's a problem. If a child in Elk County doesn't get a good education, that's a problem we all share. And I think the members of the legislature, Republican or Democrat, liberal or conservative, understand that. And this commission is a reflection of that. Any other questions?
The future of hold harmless provision is unclear right now. I know that members have said it's up to the General Assembly about what to do with that. I'm just curious why the commission didn't take a clearer position on hold harmless.
Well, keep in mind now that the commission's formula, the foundation of it is a dynamic model for student-based funding, all right? The provision of hold harmless is something that says the district gets the same amount of money next year as they had this year. The model's foundation is built on a student count, an average student count that changes over time. So that provision, as a matter of public policy, isn't accommodated in the formula. I think the concern is, what do we do with the current pool of dollars? There's a current pool of dollars, and there might be a future pool of dollars. Those are budget decisions. Those are decisions the Assembly will decide whether it will apply this formula to the current pool of dollars or to a future pool of dollars. But we recognize as a commission that in order for a formula to be credible and sustainable, that it needs to reflect the dynamic interests of a district in terms of its student population. And that's the foundation of the formula.
Yes.
Do you see the Pennsylvania has over 500 school districts, 500 school districts in the state? Do you see that being an impediment with getting this through the legislature or through the process?
You mean that we have a great diversity of school districts in Pennsylvania? I don't. I mean, the idea was we're one of 3 states at this point without a fair funding formula. Every other, or 47 states in the union do. We don't. So I think this is an attempt to address that very diversity.
I think again, part of our job as chairs, which is not scheduling meetings and scheduling hearings, but keeping our train on a track heading in a direction towards our goals. And the goals were not to affix or find blame or try to find out what district's operating better than the other. You know, Governor Rendell had proposed back in the day of cutting districts in half, and at the time I was against it. And as I'm going through this, you start thinking about administrative costs. But as I leave the suburban area outside of Philadelphia, and you get into Cambria County, and you realize the kids are on buses for an hour and 15 minutes or an hour and a half each way to school. Each one of those schools must have some type of administrative presence because they're very far apart from each other. So that's just an issue we stayed, frankly, away from and focused on our end goal, and that is to set the framework for the General Assembly to essentially put the pot of money at the top and establish that framework that'll trickle the money down to the schools in a much more fair way.
Can you help explain to folks at home who might read this as maybe money leaving their school district or more money going to a certain school district? Help really in plain language explain to them why they shouldn't be afraid of this.
Well, let me try first, and then you can give the real answer. But I think that this is really an effort to take whatever pool of money they appropriate and I sign, whatever pool of money that is, to allocate it as fairly as possible. And it is silent on how much, as it should be, because that's going to vary from year to year. But however much money we have to invest in education, the idea of the commission is that we're going to do it as fairly as possible. Did I say that right?
Yeah, and I think that people of Pennsylvania have a good understanding of the need for this. I can use my own county as an example. Lehigh County is pretty much a good prototype of Pennsylvania. It has a large challenged urban center with wealthy suburbs and rural areas, and people in that region understand that in order for children to have a fair chance at a quality education, that there needs to be an accommodation for the needs of students and equity. And I don't believe that this framework would be a surprise to the majority of Pennsylvanians. I think they'll embrace it.
I think just in plain language, as we're all trying to explain to you, my view of all along has been we throw money at zip codes, and we really, in some cases, didn't have the justification to do that. And again, to move forward, to be fair, you can't really look back at what's went wrong. We just know that a large portion of how we've been doing things just have not worked. Next week. Well, I'm sorry. Chairman Saylor is already in the drafting process. I know that Senator Smucker is as well, and it's all in our selling ability. And if I may, we only have a few weeks because we're going to have a balanced budget done here with the governor's signature, but we'll try to do our best before June 30th to get it moving. Okay.
It's something, as you know, those who've been here for a while, that's, I would believe to be accommodated with all the rest of the important components of the budget, along with the education code, the welfare code, the budget, and the budget, the fiscal code. What I can say at this point in time is, as Chairman Verb had said, the education chairs are engaged. They're both members of this, all four of them are members of this commission, and we look forward to their advancement of these, the language that accommodates the formula out of their committees as soon as possible to get the process started. But I'm very confident that in the end, it'll be part of the final product.
For one more?
I can assure you I'll sign it as quickly as I get it to my desk.
And for
One-
people who are in a desperate school
There's
district.
one other, somebody else could ask the question. Does anybody else have a question? All right, back to you.
Yeah, so for a parent or a kid who's in a kind of a desperate situation in their school district, best case scenario, this gets passed in 2 weeks, and then when is help on the way? When do they start to see some sense of normalcy in their district, some sense of stability? And I know that rests on what the pool of funding is going to be.
It really does. I think that's a key issue. It's a good point as to how quickly the money gets there. The schools have done their budgeting probably back in the winter, most of the boards, and I think they may or may not have taken into account later on what I've proposed and what others have proposed. This is a new thing thrown into the mix. I think it's up to the school districts as to how they take this into account, and it really comes down to not only how we're going to distribute the money, but how much is in that pool, and that's going to be part of the budget process. So that still has yet to be decided.
May I suggest there's more than one student or parent sitting home in distress, and I just say that we are light years ahead of where we were a year ago today, and we have our work set out for us, but we've made that commitment, and we'll continue to make that commitment and get it enacted as soon as possible.
Yeah, then we can definitely say with an exact date at this point as to how much and when, but when it does happen with this formula, that family will know they're being treated more fairly.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you.